This is the regular meeting of the Land Use Board of the Township of Greenwich, January 12. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, in that a notice was published in the Express Times and the Star Ledger newspaper. Notice was also posted on the municipal bulletin board in the Township Administration Building in Greenwich Township, New Jersey, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk. I would ask the Board Secretary to please call the roll, and I will mention that I have sworn in everyone that was reappointed that's sitting out in these chairs tonight. The only people I haven't sworn in yet, because I haven't seen them, is Dana Parker and Gary Hill. Could you call the roll?
Mr. Bruce Williams,
Here.
Mr. Mark Scuderi,
Here.
Mr. Paul Beam,
Here.
Mr. Joseph Chicallo,
Here.
Mr. Brian Baylor,
Here.
Ms. Kathy Cullen.
Here.
Mr. Gary Hill indicated that he would be on Zoom tonight and he would be a little bit late. Mr. Joseph Fiamma,
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Blunt,
Here.
Ms. Andrea Sherlaw.
Here.
Mr. Rocky Stein did ask to be excused tonight. Mr. George Bradlaugh,
Here.
Ms. Dana Parker.
She's not here yet. We haven't heard from her. So we haven't heard, Gary Hill's probably gonna be here late. Dana Parker, we haven't heard from, and Rocky Stein is asked to be excused. So does someone want to make a motion to excuse Rocky Stein?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay. Let's start the meeting with a flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as I stated before, I've sworn in the people that had to be sworn in. So the only people on the list of board members that have not been sworn in yet are Gary Hill and Dana Parker. And I will note that there's a question about the term of Joe, how do you pronounce your last name? Chicallo. On this list, it says his term expires on December 31, 2023. But under the MLUL, and one of the more complicated provisions for a term, the term of a class 2 or class 4 member who's also a member of the Environmental Commission, and Joe is, shall be for 3 years or terminate at the completion of his term as a member of the Environmental Commission, whichever first occurs. So Joe is going to find out from the mayor what his term is on the Environmental Commission to determine if he has a 1-year term as indicated on here, or if it's a 2-year term, or if it's a 3-year term. So for now, he's sworn in. It doesn't matter for tonight or this year, but I've asked him to try to get this thing resolved sooner than later, and he said he would. It's now time to reorganize. So we need nominations for chairperson. We're gonna open the nominations. Anyone have any nominations?
Bruce Williams. For chairperson.
Okay, we don't need a second, but do we have any other nominations for chairperson? I'm gonna close the nominations for chairperson. So would someone like to make a motion to elect Bruce Williams as chairperson? This one needs a second.
Second.
Mhm.
Bruce, you accept?
You doesn't have to accept. Do a roll call. We'll do it by the book.
Do I call Bruce?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Bruce Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mark
There's your answer.
Scuderi,
Yes.
Mr. Paul Beam,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Chicallo,
Yes.
Mr. Brian Baylor,
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Cullen,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Fiamma,
Yes.
Mr. Jeremy Blunt,
Yes.
Ms. Andrea Sherlaw,
Yes.
Mr. George Bradlaugh.
Yes.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Meeting
Thank you
adjourned.
for the vote of confidence.
Thanks for doing it, Bruce.
Yeah. More like get out of here and. Now you have a little more space.
You okay there, Joe?
I'm fine, yeah, no, I'm okay, thank you very much. Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Welcome.
I assume congratulations are in order.
Okay, our next, the next order of business is the election of the vice chairman. Is there a nomination for vice chairman?
You may have to.
I'll nominate, Mark Scuderi. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, then I need a motion to, elect, Mark Scuderi as vice chairman.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Second, I guess we'll roll call. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Bruce Williams,
Yes.
Mark Scuderi,
Yes.
Paul Beam,
Yes.
Joseph Chacalo,
Yes.
Brian Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Joseph Fiamma.
Yes.
Jeremy Blunt.
Yes.
Andrea Sherlock.
Yes.
George Bravo.
Yes.
Mr. Scuderi, could you join us up here
Sure.
to give a little more room down there? I wanted to do the whole thing on each of these. You can do that. We can advance. Sorry. Okay, so the next order is the appointments for attorney, for engineering expert, for planning expert, and appointment for secretary. And we're gonna go through names, right?
Yeah, and you can do these as a group if everyone agrees on the names, or if someone doesn't, you can pull one out.
So the appointment would be for Mr. John Drill, attorney, for Mr. Mike Benelli, for engineering expert, for Ms. Kendra Lilly, for planning expert, and for Ms. Amy Fleming for secretary. Can I have a motion to make those appointments?
Joe,
For Joe, and is there a second?
Second.
Joe and George.
Joe and George, okay.
Mr. Bruce Williams.
Yes.
Mark Scuderi,
Yes.
Paul Beam,
Yes.
Joseph Chacalo,
Yes.
Brian Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Joseph Fiamma.
Yes.
Jeremy Blunt.
Yes.
Andrea Sherlock.
Yes.
George Bravo.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So the next thing is the.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Is that a yes? You can hear us?
I can hear you now. I dialed in.
Okay.
There's gonna be a little delay.
Okay. So. Continuing, the authorization for charge of meeting minutes, agendas, meeting note, and meeting notices. Let me read it.
Right, well, before you read this. This is pursuant to the statute. No one in the last 5 years has asked to do this because everyone now asks that things get emailed to them. But that said, if someone wanted to have a copy of every regular meeting agenda mailed to them, and if someone wanted to have a copy of every minutes mailed to them, the resolution sets a $20 charge. So I suggest you just adopt it, even though no one's done it in the last 5 years.
Anyone means anyone.
Anyway.
Yes, anyone.
Anyway. So,
Ask for a motion
Okay.
to adopt.
so. So Mark and second from Jeremy.
Mr. Bruce Williams.
Yes.
Mark Scuderi.
Yes.
Paul Beam.
Yes.
Joseph Chacala.
Yes.
Brian Baylor.
Yes.
Kathy Cullen.
Yeah.
Joseph Fiamma.
Yes.
Jeremy Blunt.
Yes.
Andrea Sherlock.
Yes.
So next issue is the adoption of the rules of procedure. You should have all received a copy of that, which you could read at your leisure. It hasn't changed at all this year versus last year. Probably versus, it's been the same for a while.
Yeah, it was probably revised 2 years ago,
I
but
think
if
we did
anyone,
add
it
in
could be
some.
revised at any time. If anyone has any suggested revisions, email them. We'll redline it and get it out to people to consider.
Okay, so I need a motion to adopt the rules and procedures for the land use board
For 2023.
for 2023. I'll make the motion. Sure.
Second.
Mark.
Mark,
Bruce Williams.
yes?
Mark Scuderi.
Yes.
Paul Beam.
Yes.
Joseph Chacala.
Yeah.
Brian. Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Joseph Fiamma.
Yes.
Jeremy Blunt.
Yes.
Andrea Sherlock.
Yes.
George Bravo.
Yes.
Next issue is the approval of the minutes from December 8th, 2022. Is there any questions, comments, revisions for the minutes that were distributed? Not, then I need a motion to approve the minutes for the December 8th meeting. Andrea,
I saw Jeremy.
second for Jeremy. Okay.
Mr. Bruce Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Beam.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Chacala.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Baylor.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Fiamma.
Yes.
Mr. Jeremy Blunt.
Yes.
And Miss Andrea Sherlock.
Yes.
All right, so how many do you have? These are just the people that were present, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Our secretary has prepared a 2022 land use board annual report. Which looked really sparse.
It was a lot of zeros.
And I guess I had a question of. We did do the master plan reexamination last year, right?
Yeah,
Should that be in this or not? Because when I read it, it didn't sound like it should be, but I wanted to ask.
well, look, it says the board, on the second page, the board also held a workshop followed by a public hearing to
Okay.
air and need development and approve a reexamination of master plan.
Okay.
Got it.
It doesn't have to be in there, but it can be there. You got it.
You're good.
And we also have the section at the end for recommendations, but I don't think we had any. But we could always make some from our next report.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something that cropped up in the past year that said, hey, this is something that we need to address and change in the way we do business or in the ordinances or something, we could make a recommendation on that. Anyone have any comments or recommendations on the report as written? Then, if there are none, I need a motion to adopt the the 2022 annual report.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I saw Joe be on it too.
Who got it first?
I think Joe did.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Jeremy, Bruce Williams,
Yes.
Mark Scuderi,
Yes.
Paul Beam,
Yes.
Joseph Chikala,
Yes.
Brian Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Cullen,
Yes.
Joseph Fiamma,
Yes.
Jeremy Blunt,
Yes.
Andrea Sherlock,
Yes.
George Brumbault.
Yes.
Okay, public hearings. There's the Land Use Board 2022-02, Anthony O'Keefe. We have once again received correspondence from his attorney, the applicant's attorney.
But the good news is, everyone should have received a new architectural plan by a New Jersey registered architect. Which means that they've requested to be carried to what date, February?
February 9th.
February 9th, without need for further notice. But my guess is it'll go forward now on February 9th,
Okay,
because of the new plan.
and then there's also another matter on that regarding the giving us
Extension of time for the board to
for the
act.
board to act.
And in an
Till
email,
End of April.
right,
Mhm.
they granted an extension to April 30th, 2023. In an email back, I sent one out saying, look, if you want us to extend, you gotta give us us an extension, and we confirmed it.
So we have that running, so we're good there.
Mhm.
Okay, so, okay. So if there is anyone here for the Buyos application, we won't be hearing it tonight, and it will be carried to next month.
February 9,
February 9th, without any further notice. We don't need to do anything else.
that's correct.
Okay. Okay. The next one is Land Use Board 2022-01. More Energy Group. You can. Yep. Oh. Hopefully we'll be able to. Hopefully Kendra will be able to.
Oh,
do it.
gosh, I'm not on television.
Well, you will be.
No, you are.
This is the owl. The owl follows people's voices.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Oh,
This is amplify or just record?
Well,
I don't think that microphone even works.
No,
Like it's on.
let's just make sure amplification we don't need because you have a loud voice,
Thank you.
but can you just listen, see if it's picking her up? Can you put something
I
in
don't
your ears?
have any,
You have no way of doing that?
no. They never gave me that.
These feeling mics
those
work.
We can ask Kendra if she can hear her.
Kendra, can
So
you
move the
do say
podium
something?
to the ceiling
Okay.
light.
Yeah,
Move the
Kendra said she
podium.
can hear you.
Kendra's giving a thumbs up. She
Oh,
can hear you.
Kendra can hear me?
Mhm.
Hi, Kendra. Nice to see you.
Okay, there you go.
Yes,
I
you got
think
it, smart.
the podium.
Yeah, just speak up with that one.
I can move this closer.
Yeah.
We're good.
Kendra says she's good.
you're good.
I'll try, yeah, and I'll try to keep my voice.
Yeah, these are really good in this.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Rubright. I'm an attorney with Brock Eichler in Rhodes, New Jersey. I'm pleased to be here tonight on behalf of More Energy Group for Warren Asphalt HK Group. The property, as I'm sure everyone is aware, is located at 703 Route 57. It's block 3, lot 14. It's about 15 acres, just under 15 acres in size. It's located in the B1 zone. Existing uses and structures on the lot include the asphalt plant, material storage, and a warehouse. The proposal before you tonight is to install a ground-mounted solar system and related equipment, which is a permitted accessory use in the zone. We are seeking the following relief, however, minor site plan approval to install the ground-mounted solar panels and the related equipment, and a variance under the C1 and the C2 standards, bulk variance. And bulk
What's the
vari-
variance? The variance, what's it for?
Yeah, the variance is, under your ordinance, under your solar ordinance, strike that. Okay, so the proposed solar field exceeds 1,000 square feet in size, and that's one of the touch points. So pursuant to the ordinance, principal building setbacks shall apply in lieu of accessory building setbacks because of the size of the solar field. So we're seeking a variance from the required front yard setback from the 40 feet wide street right-of-way easement that adjoins the property. A front yard setback of 70 feet to the line of the 40-foot wide, and I have a graphic to show this.
I understand, I just want to get down.
Yeah, and John, I have the language, I can.
Yeah. What's the required setback and what's the proposed setback?
Yeah, so the required setback is 70 feet to the line of the 40-foot wide street right-of-way east of the proposed array, and we're providing a 7.9 foot to that easement.
I would assume for argument's sake that this thing was under 1,000 square feet. So
Yes.
that the principal building setback wouldn't apply, but the accessory setback
Yes.
would apply. What is the accessory setback requirement?
That's a good question. Do we know? I have the ordinance.
All right, look, we'll figure that one out later.
I'll figure that out.
Okay.
It's definitely not 10 feet though. But I'll find that out. I'll look, I have the ordinance.
Well, you're saying it's definitely not 7.9 feet.
Correct. Okay, so I have several witnesses this evening. John Kibblehouse, who's here representing the property owner and the business owner. James Mauer, who's our professional engineer. He's a colleague. He works with land. You will see on the plans that Eric Bowe is the engineer of record. Mr. Mauer is here tonight on behalf of land and the applicant. I also have Matthew Moore, who's with Moore Energy Group, who is the solar installer and professional. We also have the reports from both of your professionals, the planner and the engineer, and we will address their comments at the to the extent that we don't address them specifically during testimony, we will make sure that we address them and go through each of those.
I want to get everyone sworn in as a group right now before we get going. So can you have everyone that the group right mentioned as being an applicant witness? Can you step up to where this group right is? And I'm going to ask Mike and Kendra, and you three guys, raise your right hands. Kendra, yeah. Does everyone swear or affirm that the testimony they're going to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, start over here. Tell me your name, spell your last name, and give me your relationship to the applicant.
Yes, my name's John Kibblehouse, KIBBLE, Jr. And I'm one of the owners of the property.
Okay, so are you're a co-owner of the property, or are you like a managing member of the LLC?
We're a corporation.
Okay, so what's your position in the corporation? Your office?
I'm vice president.
Okay, so you're the vice president of the property owner.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, next.
I'm Matthew Moore. I own Moore Energy, the firm selected to do the installation work at the facility.
When you say you own it,
I'm part owner. My title is vice president.
so you're a vice president of More Energy, but More Energy is a corporation, I assume.
It's an LLC.
An LLC, a limited liability company.
Correct.
Okay. Vice president of More Energy.
James Mauer from Land Associates.
Can you spell your last name?
Mauer, M-A-U.
Okay, and you're a PE?
Yeah, licensed professional engineer in Jersey.
Okay, and you're the applicant's engineering expert. Okay, Mr. Finelli. Identify
Mike
yourself.
Finelli,
The board's engineering
land use
expert.
board engineer.
And Ms. Lely, please identify yourself.
Kendra Leely, board planner.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Everyone is sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What I would like to do at this point is have Mr. Kibblehouse call him back. And Mr. Drill has already asked him a number of the questions that I was going to ask him, so you know, come on back, John. Just
Okay, now I'm going to assume Mr. Kibblehouse is a lay witness.
correct.
I know that Mr. Mauer is gonna be an expert witness. Is Mr. Moore gonna be an expert or a lay witness?
I say probably both are going to testify about the installation to the extent, that, and then answer any questions
All right,
about,
we'll figure him out
yeah.
when he gets up there, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just gonna explain a little bit what we do
Right, so-
and the property itself.
Sure, okay, so, yeah, if you just describe, and I think what we have on the easel right now is a copy of the plan set, and I believe it's the existing condition plan.
So this- you can tell us, you're on sheet what, C-101?
Yes, yes.
And just identify, what's the last revised date on sheet C-101? Hopefully, it's,
Looks like 12/8/23.
Okay.
Mike, is that correct?
correct.
Okay,
All right, so Mr. Kibblehouse, if you could go through, and this is the same as the plans, that the plan set, we can mark it certainly if you.
no,
like to mark it.
it's a part of the plan set.
Okay,
Unless he's gonna write on it, highlight it, or do something to it, no need to have it marked as an
that's
exhibit.
great. I like to check because every board is different, as you know. Not every board, but many boards. Okay.
We're
so
the
Mr.
paper saving board.
Well, that's a good thing. So Mr. Kibblehouse, if you could describe and then use the plan to the extent you can or want to. Just describe the business operations at the property and then where these operations take place.
Yeah, we basically manufacture asphalt, bituminous asphalt for roadways. Blacktop is a common name. This is the main road in, the entrance here comes in off of 57. We come all the way back. There's a maintenance building right here, like a little shed here. And then this is the actual asphalt plant here. This area in the back, we store aggregate, stone, sand, whatever we need to manufacture the asphalt, which is basically stone and sand. We also have wrapped material, recycled asphalt material, it's called, and we mix that, we blend that in with the asphalt. This building we also own right here, it's a separate property, they're coming right in off the exit.
Do you know what the lot and block, the lot number of that little building you're talking about? This application,
Lot 3, lot 19.
okay, so this application is for lot 14 and lot 19.
It is for, and thank you for clarifying that because there was some confusion as to why lot 19 was included. And so now we know, and the legal notices took into consideration both lots.
Right, do we,
In terms of the.
is there a reason that lot 19 is part of the application, or it was just thrown in by accident? Just curious.
Is that is not used as part of your,
No.
oh, it's not, all right, well, I think I think that.
Better to over notice than under notice.
Yeah, and I think it was most likely something that was included, when the engineers first started laying out the property.
Okay, so the proposal that we're gonna hear about is all on lot 14, not on lot 19.
Correct.
So just for the record, what is on lot 19?
19 is a vacant building. It used to be Original, right, yes.
Okay, how do you?
Workout.
Original, remember the
Rignall,
Incredible Hulk?
Yes.
Okay.
His brother owned that.
What do you know?
Yes.
How do you like that?
And I in no way look like him, that's just to let you know.
Okay,
So yes, that is vacant right now. There are some storage bins here we used to fill.
okay, the storage
Landscapes.
bins on lot 14 behind the building that you were discussing on lot
Correct.
19.
Yes. And there's just like a little storage shed right here. We used to sell hardscape material, stone, block material, and that sort of thing. We stopped that probably, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, somewhere in there. This lot where the solar will be on this lot, right? Well, it's a whole lot.
Right.
This area.
So the solar is gonna be, where's the north arrow? north arrow to the left?
North is that way.
So the solar is gonna be on the southeast, in the southeasterly corner of lot 14.
Yes.
Is that your testimony?
Correct, yes, yep. These bins will be taken out, the building, will be removed. It's basically a shed and old storage building that's there. right now. This is most of it's a stone lot right now. Most of it's clear. There's not a lot of wooden material, woods or anything like that on it right now. It's fairly open. Not sure what else you would like to know about it. You've probably been by it, you probably know this, but if anybody'd ever like to go see the operation, I'd be glad to take them, show them to them, so.
John, is there anything that you want to now flip on to the proposals?
Yeah.
And what sheet is that?
The sheet is, C.201. Revision date 12/8/22.
Just briefly then go through what's being proposed.
This right here would be the solar, area for the solar panels that we proposed. We're doing this basically as a green thing, and then, to run the operation of the asphalt plant, for the electric for the asphalt plant. Of course, it can't go directly, it has to go back in the grid and we buy it back, but, it's basically, for green, and then, to save us some money on the asphalt side too, running the plant, so.
Is someone gonna explain why this thing can't go? Right, maybe that's from the guy from
Yeah.
Air Energy,
I think let's,
because this is an accessory use,
Right.
that's,
so
so why don't we wait for the guy from More Energy, but it's a little concerning legally if this is going to the grid and then you're buying it back for the plant, that doesn't sound accessory to me, but hopefully we'll get that cleared up.
So, just so to clarify then, Mr. Kibblehouse,
Yeah.
this is being used to power the asphalt
Right.
and the operations,
Right.
correct? And when you decided that you wanted to do this, you worked with Moore to determine where to place the
Right, well,
panels?
this
And how did you
area,
come to that decision?
yeah, this area right here
Yeah, and
is
if
used,
you could just describe a little bit, because we are on the record, and I just want to make sure that it's clear. If you can just just describe a little bit in more detail orally what it is, where it is that you're looking. And I think if you can tilt that a little bit, because I think that
which, I'm sorry, am I blocking this? Yeah.
They're good.
Basically, this whole area right here is used to stockpile stone, recycled asphalt, sand, we mix some sand in with it also. And the loader takes it from here, puts it over in the cold feed bins here, and then it goes through the asphalt plant at that point and mixes the asphalt with it. We have another location in New Jersey at a sand plant. We actually put about 3 acres of solar panels in. And that does the same thing we're looking at doing here. That runs the sand plant operation right now. But that's why this area, that's why we decided this area, because this area is all being used for location for the stored materials, the raw materials that we use.
And all of those materials that are stored on the site, and then that they all go into processing and for the asphalt, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the purpose of this, again, I think is that we stated is to power the operation on the
Correct.
site, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and let's see. And then you mentioned that you want to be more green, and that's one of the.
Yes, that's
You're aware that
another
that's
one
one of the
that,
purposes of the
yeah,
land use law, correct?
it makes sense. Yeah,
And how is it worked at the other op?
very well, very well.
That's a much larger facility.
Yes, it
correct?
is, yeah.
Any other questions? Anything else you want to relate, Mr. Kibblehouse? You
Now
don't
we,
have to.
no, we've owned it. We bought it from a fellow by the name of Fred Weiss. I don't know if anybody, you guys are all too young, probably.
Don't say that, he worked for me after.
Oh, okay, sorry.
After he sold it to you, he.
Oh, okay.
And what is that, Mr.
I think it was 25 years ago, maybe. That's,
And you've operated it since then.
yes, that's correct.
So I'm getting from your testimony, maybe that in terms of places to put this is really the only available spot that you have.
Yes, yeah, yeah, because we do store materials, you know, the rest of the area here that we need for the operation.
Yes, what is that area used for, or what was it used for?
We stored and sold, hardscape material, block and pavers and things like that at one time, stone.
Back then.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Do any other board members have questions for this witness?
Yeah, I do. There's some, and I wouldn't call it a conflict, but the application is under Haynes and Kibble House. But on the plan, it's Lehigh Valley Site Contractors. Now, what's, so the relationship between Haynes and Kibble House and Lehigh Valley Site Contractors? I guess?
Lehigh Valley site is an affiliate of Haynes and Kibble House. Haynes and Kibble House is the main entity, the H&K group is considered
Okay,
the main entity.
I knew that, but I figured
Yeah.
there is an inconsistent duplication of the name. So just so everybody understands, it's in essence the same entity.
Yes, yes, it is.
Site contract.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? Is there anyone here from the public?
Was there anyone here from the public interested in this application? There might be people that's interested in general. So there are people sitting there, obviously, the woman in the front row, Amy's with me. Yeah. And then there's a gentleman.
With Mike.
That's Bryce, good.
Okay.
And that's right, he's with me.
Well, everybody's with somebody.
Is there anybody that's not with someone?
There are no,
Maybe we can,
there are no members of the public
there
tonight.
are no members of the public.
And just for the record, I want to announce that Dana Parker has arrived.
Hi, guys, sorry, father-in-law was in the hospital and had surgery, so, yeah, it's okay, thank you.
Mr. Kibble, I one question that I didn't ask you is the number of employees that you have on site.
We have approximately 4 to 5 employees on site all the time.
Do you anticipate any change in that number based on having a solar employee?
No, no,
Are they all there all at one time?
yes.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. If no one has any other questions, I will release Mr. Kibblehouse and I will bring up.
Thank you.
Site engineer. Mr. Drill, I do have an answer to your question.
Just for the record, we've sworn Dana Parker in, so we're only down one, right?
Right, she's a member in good standing. We just need to give Gary Hill. Okay, the answer to,
What the front yard setback would be, it would be 25 feet.
okay,
No worries.
If it were an accessory structure.
Correct. If that, if that will apply.
And maybe we should say, because it's, what we're talking about as a front yard is not what people might think of as the front yard. Is that right? Where, when we're talking about the setback, can somebody show on the map where that is?
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good segue into Mr. Mauer's testimony. What I would like him to do is.
yeah, let's get him qualified first.
Yeah. Of course. Okay, so Mr. Mauer, just if you can give the board the benefit of your professional and your educational and your professional background. And describe what, what your functions are as that, by whom you're employed and what your functions are there.
Sure, I have a bachelor's of science in civil engineering, licensed professional engineer. I'm an associate at Land Associates, and I've been in this industry for about 12 years.
Okay. And what is your connection with this project then?
So my colleague Eric Bowe, who's the engineer of record, was working on this. I'm just here to cover on his behalf.
But have you testified before other planning board and board of adjustment?
Correct.
In New Jersey?
Correct.
Approximately how many?
I would say a dozen.
And you've worked on a number of solar installations, correct?
Yes.
Have you prepared site plans in connection with that with Mr. Bowe?
Yes.
And you've reviewed the site plan that he prepared, and you can answer questions about it, correct?
Correct. We reviewed it together. Yeah.
So just so the board knows, you don't need the engineer who's actually prepared it and signed it to qualify as an expert to testify about it. You just have to have an engineering degree. He does. Be qualified as an engineer. That's up to you, but it sounds like it, at least to me, And he had to have reviewed it to be able to answer questions about it, and he says we can do that also. But I think you want to ask that he be qualified as an engineering
I would
expert.
like that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, no, as I objection, we'll accept, Mr. Mauer as a professional engineer.
Okay,
Okay. So Mr. Mauer, if you can go through, in general, the qualities of the property in terms of the lot size, the zone, and how the property is accessed.
Sure. As previously mentioned, the property is about 15 acres, as accessed from the south along this, asphalt drive here. It goes back to the plan.
And where, and again, where, is that from, Route 57 or?
Correct, Route 57 or Morris Avenue.
Okay. Is that the only way in and out?
Correct.
And you heard Mr. Kibblehouse describe what's on the property currently. Is there anything that you would add to what's on the property currently?
No, I would also add that, you know, there's no wetland conditions that we found or flood hazard areas, further deep.
And if you could describe, did you take an accounting of the impervious surfaces on the property?
Yes,
Okay, and where are those and have they been quantified?
yes, so we have impervious lot coverage here, it's currently 43.1%. It's proposed at 42.1, so roughly the same.
Okay, and what are the adjacent uses to the property?
To the east is a storage complex. To the south is some residences and a commercial building we talked about. And across the street is a gas station. And there's also, along this access easement to the east, there's 3 more houses.
How are those houses accessed? Or 2 of the houses are accessed?
Yeah, the frontage of one is along Route 57. The 2 in the rear here are accessed through this, access easement.
how is the access easement used in comparison to what the prior witness described as the entry drive from the road?
The access easement is just, for the driveways of these 2 residences. It's for the, asphalt plant.
Is the access easement over lot 14?
Yes.
But what is what exists to give people the legal right to? Because that property is owned by H&K.
Is there an easement?
Yes,
Well, yeah.
access easement.
Are you, that's what you, I know you're saying that, but there's an,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, that's what I was trying to prompt
Yeah.
to say.
And actually, I think that was one of Mr. Finelli's early comments on this, that, and so then we went and surveyor prepared a survey showing that.
Yeah, that was actually one of the big delays.
Yeah.
We've been around a while. To get to tonight because of that street easement and. the
Yeah, that's what I
setbacks
thought,
still.
the way you were
So,
saying it,
Yep.
was leading me to believe that somehow that was an access easement for you guys over their property, but that's the access easement he was talking about, it's an access easement to the benefit of those 3 houses over lot 14, correct?
Correct.
2, 1 is
Oh, one.
157.
Okay.
One comes off 57, it's just 2 in the back.
And is there a driveway there, or what is it improved in any way?
Yeah. There's an asphalt drive here.
Okay, and I can talk about the topography is relatively flat.
Yeah, in the area of the solar, it's relatively flat, so it will accommodate the solar, it doesn't exceed 15%. The stockpiles in the area back here changed a bit in grade, but that's out of, the solar. Already.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. The board does.
Well, I'll go back to just the variance for the front yard setback, where on the map are we talking about?
Okay, so it would be helpful then, I think, for, Jim, if you can show him. And I don't know if he submitted an exhibit on that.
Yeah, where's the deviation? It's if it's a front yard setback,
Well, that's the measurement that's given, that we have to comply with, but it doesn't meet the 7 feet.
Right, but where is,
To show us.
Okay,
Where
all right,
is it?
yeah, you want, go ahead, so we'll mark this then.
Okay,
It's actually on the plan, you don't have to, it's right on, all the dimensions that are necessary for this discussion are on C 201.
I understand,
But
but,
we might want to highlight.
right, I'm gonna give you a yellow highlighter. Let's mark
Let's highlight
the
it.
sheet that you have up there as sheet, as survey one with today's date. Mark that in the lower right-hand corner. Take this yellow highlighter. Could you do two things? Can you highlight the 40-foot setback line? And then could you highlight, just highlight the 40-foot setback line first,
70.
the 70-foot, sorry.
Actually, I have a different color if you want to do two colors?
Probably be a little bit more visible.
Okay, why don't you use blue or whatever color she has to mark the 70-foot?
I can't see the
We can't
yellow.
even see the
very
yellow.
well.
Correct, yeah.
My eyes aren't that bad yet, you know.
I can't see the yellow.
Green and I have pink.
There you go.
There you go.
Bring them both up. I'll take my yellow back.
Seriously.
I need to get a
So you know what we're gonna do? Use pink for the 70-foot setback line, but we're gonna use green, as in, green friendly.
Yes.
To highlight the panels that encroach into the 70-foot setback. So that's measured 70 foot from what?
So it's 70 feet from, because there's this active easement, we're considering it's a front yard setback, so it's 70 feet from this property line.
why.
There's the area.
And then we want green for the panels that are within that setback.
Yeah.
Or
On this way. Which one? That's the thing down here. Yeah, I know it's right.
Three of six.
But they were within the property. We don't have to. Kendra,
He's gotta get his legal stuff straight.
no. What's the definition in the ordinance? How do you measure front yard? Where is the front yard setback measured from?
The
Is it
front yard's
measured-
gonna be measured from, can you hear me?
Yes.
The front yard should be measured from the edge of the easement, and they have it on the plan.
Right, but why is that a front yard and not a side yard? Why are we calling that a front yard setback and not a side yard setback?
Isn't the front yard on
Because, well, in my opinion, I think, John, it's a street easement, so we're clarifying it as frontage. Because the other residential lot front on that.
You're calling the
So-
easement the equivalent, the functional equivalent of a road, because that easement
Yes,
gives those lots access, and that's the front of their houses are pointed towards that easement?
correct.
All right,
Well, again, I didn't want people thinking we were talking about off of 57.
Right.
I knew it was.
no, I get
Right.
it, I get it, but I could see the logic in calling that the functional equivalent, since you do have 3 residents, or at least 2 residences, who, when they look out their front, that's the property they see. So, okay, all right, I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I have an extra copy.
Yeah. Let me just can you bring that exhibit up to me so I can mark it A1? And I'm gonna ask you when you get back there to put a pen somewhere and identify the pink line as the 70-foot front yard setback line. And
It's on the plan.
It's on.
I understand where.
Right here.
Okay, so let me watch this.
I like them.
That's what I'm gonna do. And then just add a pen to the green and say green areas are the areas of the solar panels encroaching within the 70-foot front yard setback.
You want me to write that on?
Yeah, write that on here. When you get that, you just have to scan that portion of it. You send it to Mike, Kendra, and me.
Now, you've gone ahead then and you've marked, tell the board in the record what it was that you just drew on. Or what does it show?
Well, highlighted in green, the areas where the solar panels encroach on the 70-foot setback, and I've just noted that on.
And approximately if you can roughly, what percentage of the solar panels would be eliminated if that were the setback?
1/3 of each row.
Okay. If there's no other questions about that, then what I'd like to do is, I mean, you can certainly ask more questions about that. I'd like to move on to Mr. Finelli's December 27, 2022 report. And if we can go through that and just make sure that we have answered or addressed all of the issues. Okay. The first couple, it looks like we're going to really to page 3, initial technical review zoning. And, okay, so number two, solar panels are located within an area which is partially paved. Per the ordinance, solar panels which are located over the existing paved surfaces are required to be considered impervious for stormwater management, which we expect. In addition, per a June 6, 2022 email from NJDP, the Highlands rules should not apply to this development if the panels are installed over existing surfaces. Since a portion of the panels are within grass areas, the project is subject to Highlands rules. The application will require a Highlands preservation area approval or the obtaining of a Highlands exemption. We believe the development may qualify for Highlands preservation area exemption number 4, which can be granted locally. Mr. Finelli, I think that there may be also some other exemptions but I think what I would like to suggest is if this can be if this can be addressed locally, is it your office that addresses that?
No, I'm actually not the certified individual. I'm not sure who is actually in Greenwich.
All
The
right,
zoning officer, it's a new zoning officer this year, and I don't think. Let me ask the committee, do you know who the local person is to grant the local exemptions to the Highlands? I mean, I'm certified in other towns.
Can I make a suggestion? You should probably have Mike be the person. I have a feeling that you don't have one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not thinking that we have one, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you have a. No.
Yeah, because I think when Philip was here, he's not here now, but. I think we talked about it, and I don't think he was either, so I'm not sure we have one. And we may not have ever needed one.
Correct.
And we voted as designate.
But this is pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
when's the
as a
next
matter of
township
fact.
committee meeting?
Next Thursday.
Think you could get that on the agenda?
Yeah, sure.
I would say that, and John, you probably maybe have had this experience in other municipalities where the engineer is the person that.
Yeah, correct. I've had zoning officers, engineers, staff persons.
Yeah, I do it in 2 other towns, so, and this is pretty this is about as straightforward as it gets. This is an easy.
Like
So-
to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's clean and clear and
Okay.
simple. But you need it.
Right,
So-
understood. Okay. All right, so we hopefully will be able to work with Mr. Finelli on that. So then with regard to number 3, and I guess, Mr. Finelli, we can work this out with you as well, or I guess maybe the board does have to act on this. Meadow grass is required to be installed beneath the solar panels. The plan does not comply and a C variance is required to deviate from the ordinance. And I would offer that if we can work it out with the permit to have Highlands compliance, then we would certainly do that, but otherwise, in order not to jeopardize the project, I would request that we be granted a variance from that requirement so that we can proceed, so that we don't have a problem.
Well,
with the solar.
that actually isn't a Highlands issue. That's a Greenwich ordinance requirement that you're deviating from and
No, she
therefore.
understands that. What she's saying is, they'd like to comply with it, but they don't want to agree to comply with it if it's gonna give them a Highlands problem.
Right,
So they're asking you, if they agree to comply, will that be a Highlands problem? Because if it's a Highlands problem,
No.
then they're gonna ask for a variance.
No, the issue is they're not planting meadow grass because obviously there's an existing impervious surface out there now.
right.
So I get it. So the fact that it would be more compliant if they tried to do it.
Well,
So
you know, what,
I get the fact that they don't want to do it because of the existing surface.
Yeah, I mean, if we could do, I think,
I would just
we
ask for the
agree.
ordinance.
We
The
would
ordinance
agree.
explains
Right,
it.
right. If she's offering to do it and not have the variance.
Oh, was she?
Yes,
Offer to
he's
do it?
saying, he's offering to do it unless it creates the
unless it
Highlands
creates
problem.
a high.
Oh, no, of course not. You're going from impervious to pervious.
You know,
How many
that
square-
makes such rational, complete sense,
Yeah.
but I don't think anything like that for Greenwich.
How many square feet is encompassed by the 6 rows of panels?
Under the impervious.
Yeah, only part of it is under.
I understand. First, I want to know, 2
How
questions,
wide?
one at a time. First question, how many square feet of area is encompassed under the 6 rows of panels?
I don't have that figure off the top of my head. Mr.
Listen.
Moore, do you know roughly the square footage of each panel?
No, not.
Right,
no.
total. You have
The
a,
whole area. In other words, take how long a row of panels is and take, 6 panel rows down and then multiply one by the other. That's what I'm looking for.
can you scale it out?
Yeah, I mean, 1 inch is 50 feet, so you're about, 120 by.
Scale, will you? Don't use your knuckle. Let me get it.
I used to keep it scale. Yeah.
That's how the issue.
Here you go. Next question is gonna be, how many square foot is impervious under there that would have to be removed, made meadow? Okay.
John, the measurements are on the array plan that was submitted with the package. You want me to give you those measurements?
Yeah, yes, they do. As a matter of fact, good point.
What we're saying is, this is one of the few applicants where it shouldn't cost them, any other applicant being asked to do this would say, oh my gosh, it's gonna cost a lot of money. This is an asphalt plant. I assume you can rip up the asphalt and use it as RAP. And you run on the plan. So the question is, so the first question is, how many square feet of area is encompassed by the 6 rows of solar panels?
So it's 180 by 220. I don't have a calculator on me.
No calculator,
No
no
calculator, no
scale.
scale?
Boy,
I have my phone,
He
but
was
I-
a phone, he was gonna iterate. He's pinch hitting. He was-
Yeah, I can mention it, but I'm-
180 by 220, you said?
Yep.
It's a shade less than an acre. It's 39.6 square feet, so
and not the whole area underneath. the
0.91
panels
acres.
is-
Right,
is
yeah.
Asphalt.
Now what area under the panels is asphalt?
I would say 80% of it, but not the whole entire thing.
Okay, Mike, what's 80% of an acre? How many square feet? 80% of 39,600.
39,600.
31,680.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but he's not a witness like you are. How much?
31,680 square feet.
Okay,
Most of that is stone base, it's not asphalt.
Ah, even easier.
Yeah.
So if you know from Mike, who probably is gonna be appointed to be the designated Highlands person out here, that would not only not be a Highlands problem, but that would be in conformance with the Highlands. You guys agree to get rid of the stone or whatever you have there and plant meadow grass to comply with the ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather not, because we have to maintain it, then we have to cut it underneath these solar panels and maintain it. If we have to, if that's your preference.
Or put it this way, what would the possible reason be, Ms. Rubright, for a variance from that?
It's the Highland issue.
It's gonna, but
And
by doing it, it's gonna be consistent with the Highlands. By
Well,
seeking the variance, that's where you have the Highlands issue because it's not being done. So,
well, we
Could-
have the Highlands issue because if it's, my understanding from the Highlands is that if we were just constructing something over existing impervious, we would be, the Highlands wouldn't even be getting involved. So because we have half and half, we want to make sure that everything really is as easy as
Right.
Mr.
Put-
Finelli
put it
is
this way.
suggesting, but.
as you know, finances are not a legitimate reason for a
No,
variance.
I wasn't talking about
I know,
financing.
so
I'm talking,
explain, right, but if you wanted a C variance from the requirement to plant meadow grass, what argument would you make for the C variance?
right, so the argument would be that we want to be able to comply with Highlands in order to be able to install the solar project. And what I was told by the Highlands Committee is that if we wouldn't even be under jurisdiction of the Highlands if we were installing the panels over existing impervious. So I don't want to jeopardize, because we're half and half. They don't have jurisdiction if it's impervious.
No, you're trying to get an exemption from them. Okay.
Well, I was told actually by Mr. Pepe that they don't even have control of, they don't have any jurisdiction over us. If we're doing something on existing
Can I-
impervious.
I'm either gotta swear you in, or do you have a witness that can testify
I-
about that?
The emails were part of the documentation that we submitted.
Does this sound,
No, sounds backwards.
I know, it sounds backwards. to me
Yeah.
too.
All I know is listen, we will do what we need to do in order to be
I
Highland
mean, put it this way,
compliant.
unless someone comes up with some reason to grant a variance, quite frankly, I don't see how the board could grant a variance from that particular provision. I mean, you got some great reasons for the variance from the front yard thing, but so you're gonna have to think of something. You either have to say, yeah, we're gonna comply, or have some witness put in some kind of testimony and an argument for the C variance, or I'm gonna have to, look, I just give advice. I don't tell the board what to do, but I can tell you what my advice is gonna be about that variance.
And Mr. Kibblehouse, relative to your concern about the maintenance of the grass versus, of course, the asphalt that's out there now. There are specialty seed mixes that are for solar fields like this, that only require minimal maintenance, like you cut it twice a year kind of thing.
Sure.
So this isn't gonna be any sort of, like, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to cut the grass every
Okay.
week, or, so I don't think that should be, you're gonna need Mr. Mauer and Lan, I'm sure, can find the spec for that seed mix and just put it on the plan. You have to bring in some topsoil, obviously, after you get rid of the existing impervious, and
We're willing to do it if that's what the board.
Well, yeah,
recommends. We're willing
this
to do it.
variance issue, as John was just indicating, that's in the township ordinance, which requires the meadow grass. You're in a tough spot because there's no good reason why you can't do it. I mean, that's the that's the facts.
I understand.
So,
Mr. Finelli, if we can work with you, on the exemption,
No, you don't understand something.
Well, they still.
Yeah,
I don't
need
understand a lot of
the
it.
Highland exemption.
Yeah, we gotta do the
I
executive
understand,
too.
but that's good,
No,
it's two separate issues.
correct.
Okay.
Well, can I ask, though, is there any reason, Mike, if you become the local expert? Because you said it was a straightforward exemption, okay?
Yes,
Does it become less straightforward if they replace the asphalt with grass? With
does it
grass?
become less straight? No,
Okay.
no.
Cause that's
Yeah,
their concern. you know,
No.
Yeah.
This comment number 3 here, and all this discussion about the meadow grass. Really has no impact, certainly no negative impact towards the Highlands exemption. You're good to go.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
but that's,
Yeah, don't lose 1 second of sleep.
okay.
It's all good.
All right, thank you. All right, okay. So, Mr. Mauer, if you can just go through each of these comments to the extent that we have to, if there's.
Right, item 4, on page number 4 of Mr. Pinelli's memo. He says solar panels are required to be constructed without the use of concrete or footings. The racking plans have been provided indicate the panels will be supported on helical piles, which comply with the
All right,
ordinance. So I
so-
assume you'll accept that as a condition since you're proposing it
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
correct?
and, yep, and, we will, to the extent that Mr. Mauer can agree to these, or Mr. Moore will be able to do so. So number 5 is okay. Electrical and control equipment will be labeled.
Put it this way, my suggestion is, go down this list. If there's something that you're not okay with,
Right.
talk about it. If you don't say anything, we'll all assume that
Yeah.
you're okay, and I'll put
All
a
right,
C
yep,
for
and I'm
condition
gonna
by it.
have, as far as number 7 is concerned, Mr. Moore is gonna talk a little bit about the decommissioning plan.
Okay, so we'll leave that one out for Mr. Moore.
Mhm. And, number 8, that's the variance. I'm
variance.
gonna provide, we provided the factual testimony. I'm going to provide the, legal ordinance. Landscaping screening, yeah, number 9, we wanna talk about that. If you can, Mr. Mauer.
Yes, so for screening from the neighboring residences, we have 6-foot-high arborvitae wrapping around the southeast corner of the property, the panels here.
And what is the rationale for this? 6 feet?
We think that from a ground height that would screen the solar.
And we will get to Ms. Laley's comments as well, as I think there was suggestion for something higher there.
You just briefly, I'm looking at the plan, where does it say in the plan that the arborvitae are 6 feet high? There's a note that says the fence is 6 foot high.
There's a
No.
separate landscape plan.
Yeah, sheet C 202, John. It's right here.
Oh, got it, thank you.
And then we would agree to provide a sightline profile confirming that the panels will be effectively screened from view from the neighboring residents. And I believe that's the end of paragraph 9, comment 9. Yeah, and I'll have Mr. Moore discuss that.
Mike, what are you looking for in your comment number 9? And are you, whatever you're looking for, has that been satisfied by what they just said?
Ms. Rubright just said that they would supply this sightline. I think also that Kendra should probably chime in here as well, as we recommend.
Yeah, but,
So,
okay, but the sightline profiles provide them when? After, as a condition of approval or before approval? And if it's a condition of approval, who's reviewing them for what, and what happens if the reviewer's not satisfied?
well, it would be Kendra or our office
And what are you guys reviewing for?
that the arborvitae's, the proposed landscape screening would effectively screen the panels from the adjacent residents.
And what happens if, when they give you
Well,
that
it doesn't
sightline?
comply.
Okay, then they either have to come back here or comply.
Yes,
Okay,
as in with any condition.
all right, I get it. You guys agree with that?
Well, I mean, it's, effectively is sort of a relative term, so I think reasonable.
But here's the thing, the board hasn't had, the only accessory solar panel applications the board has had are the ones on the roof.
Okay.
Those are easy. Down on the roof, got a parapet, shit, you can't see it. The two applications that the board has had for ground mounted were a couple years ago, and they were grid scale.
Hmm.
The board denied one because they weren't screened 100% by the landscaping, and they granted the other because it was screened 100% by the landscaping. And these were massive, two massive grid scale projects. So that's the history from the board is that I don't think, again, I can't speak for them. I'm just telling you, based on history, I don't think these board members are gonna want any neighbors or anyone seeing them. The board has had the view in the past, if you can't see them, they're not there.
So I'm gonna have Mr. Moore testify on that. I mean, obviously, there has to be a relationship between the landscaping and the ability of the panels to function. So,
Right, well, we're not talking about having them so high
right,
that it interferes with the sun. We're having them, talk about having them high enough so it will block the vision of the residents, especially the residents that are within that, you know, that don't have their 70 feet, so to speak.
well, that's, but that variance, that variance is understood, because that's part of our negative, that's part of what we have to prove for the negative criteria, understood.
Correct.
All right, understood. Do you want that, though?
Well, if you agree with Mike's condition, I think that would do it. But if you don't agree that when whoever the reviewer is, whether it's Kendra or Mike or both of them, if you don't agree that they have the ability to say, no, this is not 100% green, therefore the condition is not satisfied, you either got to make the stuff higher or you got to come back, then I think the board's gonna have a problem.
Why don't we ask Kendra for her?
Yeah.
Yeah, see what she thinks about this.
Yeah. So I had made a suggestion that they provide plantings in accordance with the ordinance. This area is somewhat tight. I think that we could probably look at planting 8 to 10 feet in height of these arborvitaes, and we will get closer to getting a solid screen. I think also, as council had indicated, you know, this is mitigation for going into the front yard. So I think an adequate, not only is it required to screen it, but I think because we're going into the front yard, and this is where we're obviously providing for plantings, it's an excellent mitigation for that variance. But I don't think going to 8 to 10 feet of an arborvitae is going to increase the cost substantially for the applicant, and I think it's actually going to give a much better screen. In addition to that, and we can wait for the next witness, but I believe the solar panels are actually facing south, so the implementation of a bit higher arborvitae that will grow to probably about 15, 20 feet in height, that will not impact the southern facing panels. This sits on the, I think it's on the west side, yeah, on the west side, and then a bit on the south side, but further on the south side. So if the applicant can agree to get a taller species in there, I think the planting on center is sufficient, but I think we just need a higher planting height.
So I've conferred with my client, and he will confirm it when he testifies as well, that we can do that. I guess the question I would have is, do you want them 8 to 10 at planting or to grow?
Oh, no, she wants to make it 10.
8 to 10.
Yeah, she doesn't want to have to wait 5 years.
Understood. Okay, I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving along, and just in terms of, Mr. Mauer, is there anything then in the next section, items 10 through 18, that we have any other issues with?
The only thing I would say is the soil erosion currently, because
Well, give us a number, what number?
number 11.
Okay.
Right now, we're on helical piles, so we're less than the 5,000 square feet for certification. If we're gonna take out all the gravel or asphalt.
Yep.
Lot, we're gonna be over that 5,000, so we'll just have to engage the soil conservation district.
Okay, so in other words, you agree that condition should be imposed.
This, Upper Delaware Soil Conservation District approval.
Upper Delaware Soil Conservation District,
If necessary,
if applicable.
if applicable,
All right.
or necessary.
Okay.
Okay. Right, and actually,
And that's actually number
That's actually
13.
number 13, Mr. Fallon. Okay, Warren County Planning Department, we have submitted. We've submitted, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then 15 is the Highlands, we just talked about that. And I think, other than that, I think we're agreeable to those. Actually, number 12, the proposed evergreens along the rear line are located within 20-foot wide private water line easement. The applicant shall provide testimony as to whether the easement contains an active water line. Do we know? Is that something that we've looked at?
I'm not sure if it's active.
I'm not aware of any word line back here.
No, I asked the question.
Okay, so Mike, if no one knows the answer, what do you suggest the board do?
I mean, it is shown on the plan as a private water pipe line easement.
Can you show on C201 where this first show the proposed evergreens along the rear line of lot 18? Okay, and then don't mark it up, just run your finger. I'm gonna ask Mike to show me where that water line is indicated.
Okay, this is the street easement,
Yeah.
and this is flipped the other way from
Okay,
the
yeah,
plan,
yeah.
so big, right here. Private water pipeline easement, right here is 20 feet.
Oh.
So the proposed plantings are within that easement.
Can I make a suggestion? Why can't they just move the plantings outside the easement area?
They probably.
Why can't they just move them? Now, I know
Well-
they're southern facing. So this, I know that, so that gets close to the southern face, I understand that, but.
Yeah, well, this may be a problem. That's for them to tell us though.
So what Mr. Finelli recognizes is you could move the plantings outside the easement area, but if you do that, your panels are obviously south facing.
Yeah.
That would move them closer. That might cause a shading problem, although you could move the whole field. If you had to move the plantings, let's say 10 feet, you can move the entire field 10 feet. You have room to move the entire field 10 feet? Every single one of those rows of panels, 10 feet to the north?
Unfortunately, we do not. There's a large berm there that would hinder the system size.
Okay, so what do you propose to do? I know that you have proposed the plantings to screen lot 18.
So what I would add is that we didn't place the plantings right on top of the water line. We offset it a bit. And I would say that these plantings aren't deep rooting, so I don't think they would get to the depth of the.
Do you
water.
guys know if you have the right to put plantings in a water line easement? Forget about the actual, whether the pipe is,
I don't
Live
know
with it.
who owns the easement. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure where the water line goes or if it's active even.
Well, there's
I
a
have no
couple,
idea.
there's also a gas line easement, not in, it doesn't impact the plantings or the panels. But I think these three residential units that we were talking about, that I think that to provide utility service to those, that's where this water line easement and the gas line easement came from. Whenever that was before all of our times. Yeah. Yeah, this goes through here and you see the gas easement here. So I suspect it's to serve those homes. I don't know that.
I have no idea what to do about it. I have no suggestion. I don't know what to do about it. So Mike, what do you, after hearing everything you just heard, what do you suggest to do about it?
Well, I would say find out, who is the easement in favor of. I would suspect it's Aqua's easement as the water purveyor in town. And have them coordinate with Aqua to confirm whether or not that Aqua would allow them, these trees to be planted in their easement. I mean, maybe they would.
That's, the easiest thing would be, if they would say, yes, you can plant them, then problem solved.
Well, we have to, it's an old easement, so we need to track it down.
I understand, but in order to not have to come back, I assume you'd rather ask for an approval subject to a condition saying that
Absolutely.
you have to get the consent of the easement holder to plant them, and if you don't get it, then you're gonna have to come up with plan B and
Yeah.
probably come back here.
Right, obviously, yeah. Okay.
Jim, how far back did we?
Hey, John.
All right, so.
We don't know.
Did she ask?
John, John, can I make a suggestion on the Plan B option? There are evergreen large shrubs that they could probably plant outside of that easement if they can't plant it in the easement that will not affect the solar panels. And I can work with the applicant to find a different species that wouldn't get probably higher than 10 feet, if that's acceptable as a Plan B.
I don't know. Kendra, how high would they have to be to make sure that lot 18 doesn't see those panels? Because those are south facing, so lot 18 is gonna get glare twice a day. We don't know when, depends on what time of year it is, but twice a day, the sun's gonna bounce off those things. So how high do they have to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, John, honestly, I don't know enough about what the glare is coming off of those panels. So I think one of two things, they can provide testimony with regards to that, or they also could do a shadow study if they were to move these outside the 10-foot line, and they could indicate whether they're gonna impact the solar panels or not.
Let me ask this question. The panels in question right now as proposed are a max height of 10 feet, the panel. Is there any way to drop that down, like to 8 feet?
At least on that side.
Yeah, all right, so I'm gonna let's bring up Matt more.
Okay.
And we can testify.
At this point, yeah, get him qualified as an expert, because these are expert type questions.
Did,
He's not done.
he's not that.
Yeah.
So Matt, can you,
We're going out of order. It's
introduce
going-
yourself, give the board the benefit of your educational background, what your
Sure.
role is at More Energy?
Yep.
And you've been here tonight hearing the testimony and the questions, and hopefully you can shed some light on that.
Absolutely. So it's a family-run business. My father started it. I joined the company full-time in 2013. I went to Penn State for communications. When I first started with the company, I started in the field, so I have a lot of hands-on experience. And since then, I've taken more of a management position, overseeing the day-to-day operations. The solar system that we're proposing is a maximum of 10 feet, but they are on a 20-degree tilt. So at the low end of the solar system, you're probably, depending on the local grade, about 30 to 36 inches from the ground. It is possible that we could perhaps lower the system further, if that would help the situation with the buffer, to a certain degree. Eventually, these panels will hit the ground, so we have to make sure they keep high enough so that the snow doesn't build up on them too. The side here, we can absolutely do the buffer. That's not a problem. Panels are pointing south, so you might have some afternoon sunlight affect them. But again, these panels are wired in strings, so it's not like they're affecting the entire system. You're just affecting the panels in question. The other thing that we could do here is if we needed to, we do have some flexibility to shift the system back away to give us some extra room away from the water easement. Again, if necessary.
And when you mentioned, you heard the discussion about planting the species outside the easement. Is that something that possibly could happen?
Well, he's saying if you shifted all the panels,
Yeah,
then they would plant them outside the easement.
outside the easement.
That's what he's saying, right?
Yes, there is some room to shift the system back.
How many feet could you shift it to the north?
That would take care of that would take care of the easement issue.
I would think we could comfortably shift it back 5 feet before it would be very problematic to the site.
And Mike,
Yeah.
in your opinion, if they shifted it the whole solar field 5 feet to the north.
North.
And they kept the distance that they're now proposing between the southerlymost edge of the panels and the proposed plantings. Would that pull the plantings out of the easement area?
Yeah, I would say probably, yes. I mean, I'd like to see it on a map. I mean, it's.
I understand,
pretty close, but sure.
But should that then be the condition rather than the condition being get permission from the water line easement holder to plant the evergreens in the easement area to provide
Well,
screening for lot 18, or should it be
It's either.
Yeah, it could be the alternative.
so A and B? And either at their choice? Or A first?
Yeah, and also, as Matt, Mr. Moore said you could do, drop the panel, all the panels. I mean, that would help also from a buffering standpoint.
I was gonna suggest that's, I think, separate and apart, because I didn't. If you have a panel as high as 10 feet and you're planting 8 to 10 feet high, at least in the second floor of your home,
Oh,
you're seeing those
You're
panels.
seeing those panels.
So I'm thinking that that should probably be a separate condition,
Okay.
separate and apart from this.
The exact distance in which we could drop it.
So put it this way, what is the average large snow out here? Is it 12 inches, 24 inches? If you have a large snow, have you looked at data over the past 5 years?
I can't say I can speak to
So
that.
why did you guys pick to have the low edge at 3 or 4 feet rather than 2 feet? Because the board heard in that grid scale application, they were having their lower edge at 2 feet.
Okay, yeah, and that is possible to do. Typically, we choose 30 to 36 inches. So from a practical standpoint of working around the equipment or, landscaping around it or lawnmowers.
And so if the board said that the lower edge of all the panels shall be no less than 2 feet from ground level, you would agree to that as a condition?
Sure. It does present somewhat of a different
You just said
design.
no
You mean
less,
no
no
more?
more.
No more.
Yeah.
You just said
No more than, not no.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry, no more than 2 feet.
You were saying,
Shall be at least,
It does present
No,
somewhat of.
no.
I want them as low as possible.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
maximum of.
A maximum of 2 feet.
can't be.
So the way the panels are installed into the rack, it's actually slid in from the bottom. The rails themselves are a channel.
Yeah,
So there is some limitation.
but can't you slide them from the top down rather than the bottom up?
It does present some, sure, yes.
Either ladders or a lift.
What are the issues? Put them in and then.
It's just
It
it's a
takes
more,
longer, the installation is longer.
Yeah.
If you slide them from the top at 8 feet high,
Also more manpower, because
Yeah.
you gotta lift the panel.
Is there any danger to?
it's directly related to the.
yeah, it's no
easement
danger,
installation.
it's money.
No, I mean, in terms of breaking, in terms of, is there any possibility of damage to them? That's my question.
Of course, lifting anything, plus 6 feet in the air, there is own separate challenges with doing that.
Let me ask you this, if the things were 3 feet off the ground, rather than 2 feet off the ground, the lower edge, how would you do the installation?
Can you repeat the question?
If the lower edge of the solar panels
Yep.
were 3 feet as proposed. I'm gonna get to the 2 feet after, how are you gonna do the installation of sliding the panels into the racking system?
The distance from the ground to the panels calculated on a grade and actually the size of the particular panel. Because these panels are slid in, kind of like a door. If you get to a certain point where you'd have to physically bend the panels, otherwise they would hit the ground.
You're not listening to my question. What is the current proposal as shown on the plans for the distance from the lower edge of the panel to the ground level?
I believe
I thought you said 30 to 36
that's
inches.
correct.
So my question is, assuming that the distance between the lower edge of the panel and the ground level is 36 inches,
Correct.
which you propose.
Yep.
Tell me how you're gonna install the panels into the racking system.
At 36 inches.
Yeah.
They would slide in from the bottom,
Okay. And how long are these panels?
88 inches.
So how would you slide an 88-inch panel into the racking system?
It's a two-man operation. Typically, you have a man on each side of the panel and it slides up the channel.
And you can do that at 36 inches.
Yes, it's a 30 to 36 inches because the degree of the the tilt would be
Because
right
yeah,
at 20 degrees.
But at 2 feet, instead of sliding them up, you'd have to slide them down, is that correct? So
Correct.
how would you go about sliding them down rather than up?
It's not typically done, but I imagine we'll have to use some sort of scissor lift.
Right, same two guys, but on a scissor lift, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if I can, I just want to be careful that we're not redesigning the entirety of the solar installation because of a possible issue with plantings in the water easement. So I'd like to kind of go back and sort out
Right.
what we're trying to achieve and
Right.
what my client has agreed to.
Right, this is what my notes say. There's two conditions we're talking about. One is in response to Mr. Finelli's comment, well. The second condition has nothing to do with that. So let's talk about the condition that I've written down in responding to Mr. Finelli's item 12.
Right, which is.
That condition gives you an option.
Private. water
Option
line.
A is get permission from the water line easement holder to plant the evergreens in the easement area to provide screening for lot 18. Or option B, at the applicant's election, A or B, move the entire solar field 5 feet to the north and move the plantings out of the water line easement. Now,
I
that.
thought
can-
there was another one that we could also plant, right, and that's plant the species outside the easement. So
Right,
I think, John, if we can plant the.
listen, I'm
would
not
like-
done, I'm not done.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's the condition A and B in response to Mr. Finelli's number 12. Mr. Finelli brought up a separate point. It's
Right,
not
but
in his memo.
I had a comment about
A and B, go
A
ahead.
and B.
Okay,
If we have, if the goal is to get the plantings out of the easement, it may or may not require moving the array 5 feet. If there's a way to do the plantings outside of the easement without moving the array, or moving it, if that can't be done, then the option B would be, part 2 of option B would be moving the array 5 feet.
okay,
Sounds reasonable.
yeah.
Does that comport, Matt, with what?
Yeah, that's perfect. That makes
Okay.
sense.
So I'm assuming the board grants this, when I totally blow this condition, when you review it, I'm sure that you'll correct it.
Yeah, you want to repeat that again?
So-
I understand the
like-
concept,
Yeah, so so we want to make sure that we're not planting. That this is with regard to the planting.
this is only if you don't get permission from the
Right,
water
if we
line
don't
company.
get permission from the water company, there are 2 possible options,
Or whoever
One-
owns the easement.
Right,
right, or whoever owns the
the
easement.
easement, the easement. water
Planting
line easement holder.
the species outside the easement.
Right, if you think, listen,
If-
that's what we did in the beginning. Your guy
Right.
told us that you didn't
Right,
want to do
right,
that because it
so-
was gonna shade the panels.
And that may or may not, what I don't want to be doing, what I don't want is that if we can't get permission from the water company, I don't want to be required to move the arrays.
Okay,
5
so you
feet.
want
As
a B
long
and a
as we
C.
can- As long as we can move the plants outside of the easement,
Okay, hold
and that
on,
may
hold on.
require moving the array 5 feet.
Okay, so what you want, if you don't get permission from the water line easement holders to plant the evergreens in the easement area, B is just plain old move the plantings out of the easement
Yeah,
area.
and that may entail.
And C is
Okay.
that you can move the entire field 5 feet to
Okay.
the north
That's
and
good.
move them out. That's what
Okay.
you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Now, separate and apart from that, Mr. Finelli said, wait a minute. The top edge of the panels is at 10 feet. That's kind of high. That's actually higher than the board has approved on those 2 grid scale applications. So he said, why do you need to be at 36 inches? Then your witness said, well, it makes it easier installation from the bottom to the top. And then I said, well, what if you move that edge to 2 feet? You could do the installation from the top. And then your witness said, yes, he can. Same 2 guys, but they'd have to add a system. So my suggestion to the board is to also add that condition, just because it will lower the top edge of the panel by a foot. And it's just another level.
That helps out on many fronts.
On many
That
fronts.
Across many,
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's,
which comment number is that?
that is
None.
not a comment.
That's not a comment.
Oh,
number.
That was a Mike Finelli comment on.
Okay.
That was a Mike Finelli brainstorm that everyone witnessed in
Sometimes
this
it
room.
happens, yes.
So,
So didn't you see the light bulbs coming out of his ears?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So the height of the array, does that directly translate to the height of the buffer required?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you have,
you might very well, when you do the sightline drawing, that they're gonna check to make sure it's 100% screened, you might very well not have to go.
So in theory.
Because you said 8 to 10 feet, you might not have, if you lower that, you might not have to go to 10 feet.
Sure, so in theory, if I were to magically get the array at 5 feet, I could put 5 foot
Well,
plants in.
let me put it this way, you're gonna do a sightline drawing.
Sure,
And either Kendra or Mike or both are gonna review it, at least the way I have the condition written.
Yeah.
And they have to be satisfied that this thing is 100% screened.
sure.
And then if they're satisfied to that, it doesn't seem to make sense that you go higher than you'd have to.
Yes, Paul.
I did, one question to. And when we change the elevation and the bottoms, you said that they're on a 20% skew,
20-degree tilt, yes,
20 or 22?
20,
20. What happened if they were on a 25-degree?
they would be taller.
Well, if you put it 25, wouldn't that bring the top down
No.
and raise the
No,
bottom?
Raise the top.
Raise the-
no, you have to go down like the 15.
Yeah, go down to 15.
Yeah, okay, all right, then I just needed, yeah.
The system is specifically designed to a certain size based on the facility's consumption levels. The system is designed to offset 100% of the annual KWH. If we impact the tilt level of the solar system, it's going to directly impact the production level of the solar system. So where we provided 100% offset, we might be at 90 or 85%.
You said the system's designed to match their electric need, which is what?
520,000 KWH a year.
520 kWh. Okay.
And this solar system is 400,000 watts, which throughout the year, based on this location and the tilt angle that we're gonna install it, will produce around 520,000
Is the
kWh.
tilt angle related to how much sunlight it gets?
Yes. It's based in our location.
And it's fixed, it does not.
Fixed. This is not a tracking system, which are also common.
Okay.
So are there smaller panels that could be lower? If this thing is bigger, could they be half the size and half the height? Not gonna give them the energy.
The panels that are used in commercial settings such as this are very similar in size, maybe a difference of a couple inches this way or that, but nothing significant that would change ultimately the surface area of the solar panel is very similar to every surface area of most of the solar modules today, in the sense that they can only convert so much sunlight to energy. So the panel that we're proposing here are 480 watts each, and that's based on the dimensions of the solar cells. If we went to a smaller panel, it may not be 480 watts, it might be 400 watts. So more panels would be needed to achieve the same
And
task.
the panels proposed are what the plant needs, there's not like an overage, right?
No, so we're not, in New Jersey, they're very strict about making sure you do not produce more energy than you historically consume on a 12-month average.
And by the way, was the prior witness correct that you're actually gonna be sending this
I'm
electricity?
glad you
to
brought
the
it up.
grid?
So all the energy produced by solar system is directly used on site first.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes,
It only goes to the grid.
correct.
Because you have, it's, what's it called? What metering? It's net metering?
Net metering. So that's part of the application process that we had to do. And we've achieved
All right.
that.
I thought that he was wrong, but.
I was wrong, I admit it, I'm not.
No, you you should be glad you were wrong, because
Yeah.
that would have thrown a
Oh.
big monkey wrench into
Yeah,
your
that would have been a
application.
use variance, and we would have all
Yeah.
gone home.
So
Yeah.
what happens with the grid is when they shut down
No,
for 2 weeks, all the energy produced is stored with the grid, and through net metering, which is a relationship we establish with the grid ahead of installation, the grid is going to virtually store that energy and send it back to you at the same cost. So it's a virtual piggy bank.
and I forgot to ask you this, how many panels are gonna be out there?
It's 400. if I can-
Each one is 480 watts, and you said they produce a total of 400,000 watts, so how many panels?
Probably 930 panels.
Any chance of going above the recommended energy limit by the state?
So in New Jersey, they're extremely strict about making sure you do not overachieve your. In Pennsylvania, however, that's not the case, and
Because then the government has to pay the entity for the overage.
yes, and we're developing several sites that are actually directly feeding the grid with no customer present.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Board members, any questions for this witness?
You guys asked all.
Nothing? And also, Mr. Mauer was up earlier. Did anybody have any questions for?
Yeah, I had a quick, who took these pictures that are in the board's package? Mr. Did
I didn't even know.
Mr. Mauer take them?
It's possible that it was someone from my office.
What's the purpose of them? And for example, what's the difference between the first one and the second one? They look identical to me.
It's probably just to show or illustration of what the lot looks like today, or what it used to look
Look at the
like.
first one and the second one.
Yeah, they look identical. They're the same.
They are I think we have a copy. of them.
Probably a mistake.
It may have just been the way I submitted it. You can blame me.
The lot is
Everyone
cleared
else.
out. Six photos, so that's.
Yeah, there's two. The first two seem
Okay, but
identical and the second two.
these pictures,
This street bigger.
the
Yeah.
portion of the property that the solar panels are gonna go on?
That's correct.
That's before.
Yeah. It's
Right, this is before.
forward or back.
They had storage equipment, but that's all clear. since that.
Right, but you don't have a picture of it right now. You don't have a picture of the lot with
Yeah.
all the stuff cleared, right?
I do not believe so.
I don't-
No, they don't.
I don't think we need these, do
They don't,
Okay,
I would-
they're actually confusing.
Yeah.
So
maybe we can
part
just
of the
ignore them.
part of the application required that we submit, required that we submit photos.
Yeah,
That's a good point. That is true.
And
Right.
we submitted the application in the summer of twenty
Yeah.
twenty-two. So,
right, just in general, so this is enough to get the application complete. But just in the future, if you're appearing, get some labeling, what does it mean? I mean,
Sure.
people, I got a call, what do those mean? I felt
Makes
stupid, I
perfect
don't know.
sense. Yep.
Okay.
again, just blame me. For the application, no, nice.
Question.
Yeah, Joe?
Is this displacing any fossil fuels? Or is it all just replacing their existing electric use?
Yeah, so. If they don't have solar, they are buying power from the utility, and utilities produce power using fossil fuels.
Yeah.
By having solar installed, they are directly consuming the power produced by solar energy. Basically offsetting their utility requirement.
Right, yeah, my question was, would they be able to decommission any on-site generation?
Yeah, so there, I'm glad you brought up decommission. There is a useful life for solar panels, typically between 30 and 35 years. Actually, as technology advances, now they're saying it's 35, 40 years, because warranty periods continue to increase. Typically, all the equipment we're proposing here, nothing's welded or anything like that. It's all bolted, everything's screwed into the ground. So when it comes to decommissioning, everything can be taken apart, just like a simple system.
Right, and that's Mike's question that we held for you, number 7. The decommissioning plan,
Sure.
because this came up in those 2 grid scale. What happens at the end of the life? The township didn't want the stuff just like remaining there. There might be some hazardous materials in those solar panels. So they wanted to know, a plan to get rid of them and some kind of cost estimate and maybe post some sort of, on those, they posted,
A bond.
a
or
bond, a decommissioning
For
bond.
restoration, yeah, decommission.
Because the township's fear,
Sure.
if you get to the end of the life, he sells the plant to somebody. They're not-
They stop
away.
operating on the.
Yeah, now they got hazardous stuff there, now the township potentially on the hook.
Sure, absolutely. So there's a few things I could speak to that. We actually just recently, well, I guess a year ago now, but decommissioned a system in New Jersey. It was in Linwood. It was a roof-based system. It was about 1 megawatt. We did that project for $100,000. Okay. Actually, with the process is we take all the equipment, we recycle what can be recycled. You have a few different options with solar panels. There are special places that actually take recycled solar panels and then try to reamp them. The other more commonly, thing, so even though a solar panel is guaranteed for 30 years for a certain production level, what that simply means is the panel's producing 480 watts today. At the end of 30 years, it might be producing 390. Okay, so it derates slowly over the course of time. Even at 390 watts, that's still a useful solar system. So the system we just recently decommissioned, majority of those panels went to third world countries to power local villages. So.
And I think you mentioned this, but just describe this a little bit more. The equipment that will be installed, how does that relate to the decommissioning? If there are already things that will be used to decommission that are in the.
Yeah, so all the components we use are designed for the ease of installation in and also out.
So I would assume, well, it's in the ordinance, so you really don't have much of a choice in that, or you would agree that to include that as a condition of approval.
The decommissioning plan with the cost estimate, and whatever else the ordinance says.
Yeah, we can put together a cost estimate for what we think is a reasonable approach to it.
Yeah, again, it's a code requirement.
Sure.
It's just not me asking. Okay.
Mike,
Oh,
anything else?
oh, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
All in my report.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kendra, how about you?
I think the only thing that wasn't covered from my report was just a bit of testimony on lighting and whether there would be security lighting in this area or no lighting at all.
Do you know what number in your report that was?
That's 3.2 on page 3.
Guys,
So the system is designed with no lighting, no street posts or anything like that. I shouldn't say no lighting. We do have a small light near the inverters that is a switch. So it's just purely meant for maintenance. So it would go on and off as needed for O&M.
This array is surrounded by a 6-foot high chain link fence. Is there obviously there's a gate to
Correct.
access. Is there a light at the gate? It's like a motion sensor type of light,
Not in the,
or there's no light at all?
but adding a solar light on top of the gate shouldn't be an issue if that's something that's required.
We don't require it, do we?
Well, we've
think it's a-
asked in the past.
you think it's a good
only
idea?
because if somebody has to maintain it, it'd be nice to be able to
So
get inside, see the lock on the gate to get the key in the lock to get inside. So,
from a solar perspective, all the maintenance that we would be doing would actually be doing during the daylight hours for obvious reasons.
no, I was thinking for some emergency purpose of some sort to get in when, because obviously, and I think we have that in our report about the fire chief. Not, it's gotta be,
Well, I don't remember seeing about the fire.
yeah,
no,
there's
well,
nothing in there about the fire chief,
Okay.
just so you know.
well, that needs to be added, that there are some comments from the fire chief regarding the project in question and their confirmation. So,
So I can add and.
Review and compliance
Matt-
with any comments of the fire marshal,
chief,
fire chief. How's that sound?
It's fine with me.
If I might, Matt and I did talk about a number of communities do request or require that the fire company be invited on, be instructed on.
Yeah, just
if there's a fire.
the one that they granted for the grid scale, that was a condition, and the accessory rooftops,
Mhm.
that's also been a condition,
Yeah, what is the condition that they have, that they go on site
and for a training,
for training?
yeah.
And we're happy to do that. It's really important in the rooftop, not, ground is fairly straightforward.
Right, what the fire chief told the board, I'm not testifying, I'm just repeating based on my recollection. On the solar one, was if there was a fire there, as long as no one died, let it burn. No, because you don't want, he said you don't wanna spray water on it, and they don't have special chemicals, so he said, let it be their problem.
but
You would say that.
You did say that.
so
Great.
you're okay with that condition?
Related to the fire chief,
Yes, yes. Do we need a light or not?
Yeah, I would say it's strictly
What kind
it's a
of,
light at the gate, and it's both, it's motion sensitive.
You want a motion sensitive or on a switch?
No, I want motion sensitive, so when somebody goes up to it, it'll go on.
Is the deer running?
Yeah.
you're right, but
Where is the gate that Mr. Pinelli's talking about?
I don't think the box.
It's located near the inverters.
Oh,
Yeah, okay. See the fence
Yeah.
right
I
there.
wouldn't think we'd have any problem with a solar
Okay.
motion activated.
Right down, right down by that.
Okay, and we to install that's solar panels just to draw energy, you know?
the panels are getting smaller over time and more efficient, just like every other piece of.
Of course, I relate solar right now to the iPhone. Every year there's gonna be.
That's, yeah.
We're already pushing 550 watt modules
Yeah.
in the time of this application
Yeah.
to now.
Yeah.
But it'll cost twice what it does now.
Yeah,
We're going the other way.
Yeah, lower cost, yeah.
What's nice about this is that where the gate is the furthest removed point from the adjacent residences,
Okay,
so.
but so you're okay with the condition that they install a solar motion activated light at the gate?
Well, any light, he doesn't care, so
Yeah, you know,
light at the gate.
we're
on
okay with the solar. that's
Yeah.
right.
Perfect. All right, excellent.
And the small light near the inverter is gonna be put on a switch for Kendra.
Perfect. Yep, that works.
And there's probably gonna be, but the fire chief will add this, fire chief's gonna probably want you to put a Knox box up on the fence for him to get in.
That's up to the fire chief.
Yeah.
Board members have any other questions for this witness? For Mr. Moore? We have no one from the public? Were there any questions for Mr. Mauer, the engineer?
I don't know who this question should be directed at. I just see that the solar panels here seem to be super exposed for line of sight from Route 57 and Liberty Road. I don't see much being done to screen those areas from the panels.
Well, 57 was the screening that we were talking
Yes.
about.
That's only on.
And it's only behind one house, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right, he's right.
Let's go to them.
Yeah,
And although
board
it's
members, I had put
the edge of the
I had put
property,
that in my report, page 2, under E2. I had recommended that if the solar panels are visible from any other residential district, even in Lopakon or Route 57, that additional plantings are warranted. So maybe the applicant could agree to, once it's built, that if additional plantings are needed to screen the views from Route 57 or any other residential area, that they would work with our office to do that.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Kendra, which item on your report is that's down to E2?
E2, it's 2.2 E2.
Yeah, I've got it,
That's the very bottom of page 2.
got it.
Yeah, you're just maybe being.
So what would the condition be then?
I think I think the condition could be that, once it's constructed, that Mike and or me or both of us would go out and do an on-site visit to see if supplemental plantings are necessary. If you can see these, because I agree with Paul that potentially you could see it from Route 57. And there is a requirement that it's to be screened. So if it's going to be screened, either you're going to do updated plans now, or we can do it in the field once it's constructed.
If we could do it as, like an as-built. This project has been obviously delayed significantly, so we'd like to move forward with construction as soon as the board felt it was appropriate to move forward.
Well, I guess my question is there sufficient room for additional plantings if it turns out they're required?
Yeah, there would be. The only place I see.
Yeah, I think there is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is getting further because they're on an angle from the easement there,
Yeah.
so I would think if you needed to, you could put some in here if you can see it from the road.
Mr. Kimballhouse, looking at the survey and some of the other site plans, there appears to be some, and I've driven past the site 1,000 times, but it's not in my head right now. There's existing buffer vegetation, isn't there? Like along the south, or it'd be the west side of the property.
Over here?
Yeah.
There is over here, yes.
Yeah.
There is over here.
Color pictures. Yep. Pictures are good for something. Yeah, so, I mean, that obviously needs to be put, considered in the overall evaluation. If you're lucky enough to have existing vegetation, it's gonna block that,
Right.
done, end of story.
Well, with that being said, most of that is deciduous,
Well.
and for 4.5 months out of the year, there are not gonna be any leaves on it.
Okay,
If that's the case,
Mr. Grill, do you have a condition that you're suggesting?
It's a little rough around the edges. I would refine this, but something to the effect that post-construction, the board planning expert and board engineering expert shall perform an on-site visit to determine whether the
on the site.
solar panels can be seen from Route 57, and if so, the applicant shall add evergreen landscape screening to the satisfaction of the township engineer and township planner to satisfy ordinance section 16-4.9A3C.
It's Route 57 and or Liberty Road.
Okay, Route 57 and
Liberty Road,
Liberty Road,
County Route 637.
County Route 637.
Is the
How's that?
applicant okay with that condition?
Yes, you're talking more arborvitae or similar to the
Yeah.
other side.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I
Okay.
mention evergreen landscape?
You did,
Okay.
you did.
Okay. How's that sound to Paul, who brought the issue up?
I can already tell you now, you're gonna be able to say it. So there should be some planning long before being built.
To put it this way. Do you think that if they did the supplemental evergreen landscape planting, that it would in fact screen it?
No,
And you guys gotta decide what you wanna do about that. Because then the ordinance is not complied with.
So why wouldn't it screen it over time? Wouldn't it screen it?
being super familiar with the property, the topography and everything else like that. The site distances they're just too far away. You're
So
just
if-
not gonna be able to cover it.
So if I can be heard on that, I mean, I think the idea that the panels could be 100% screened is probably not attainable. And I understand the concern of trying to screen as much as possible. I think what we have to do, or what the board should do, or I will request that you do, is look at, it's not really a variance, or look at it in terms of a variance standard, where we're looking at what the benefits are of getting this property to be self-sufficient from the electric standpoint, getting off the grid, not using fossil fuels, as was mentioned, but using the sun. And, it's an admirable, it's one of the purposes of the municipal land use law that will be furthered here in terms of using alternative power sources.
And here's the
So I
problem.
think it's a balancing test.
Right.
And, to the gentleman's point, they should be screened. But I think the issue is how extensively, and is that something that could be done, could be looked at after the panels are up? And that with the understanding that, you know, somebody's gonna always be able to peek through and see.
Yeah, but the problem with your argument is, let's assume that this was a D1 variance case, and let's assume it's inherently beneficial. There's published case law that says even an inherently beneficial use has to satisfy the negative criterion. And unless you're saying that the ordinance is unreasonable, but this board can't say that its ordinance is unreasonable. I want to see, what does the language of the ordinance actually say? 16-4.9 A3C. I just want to get A3C says the gross area of ground mounted systems, including the aggregate area of multiple systems, which are greater than 1,000 square feet, this one is, shall meet the following screening requirements. So to begin with, if this was less than 1,000 square feet, you wouldn't have this screening requirement. So this evidences some intent, whoever drew the ordinance, that even though it's inherently beneficial, there's also the negative criterion for the public.
Substantial detriment.
Substantial detriment. It might be great for them, and it might be great for the environment, but there's also a visual environment.
But
So,
substantial,
but I haven't read the whole
I know.
thing yet. So then it says, shall meet the following screening requirements. Number one, a solid screen of plantings and or a fence shall be provided along property lines shared with a residential zone district and rights of way. The minimum height of the screening shall be 5 feet. That's a minimum. Existing vegetation shall be retained to the extent practical. So what is the zone? What is the zone along the streets?
B1, where you talking about?
the property's in the
Of the two
B1.
streets, I know the property is in the B1. What's the zone of the other side of
RCD,
Route 57 in Liberty?
RTD.
And RTD is a residential zone.
Yeah.
Where is that? I'm sorry.
That's
That's the other side. of-
where board member Beam brought up the question that what if it's visible from, and this is also in Kendra's memo.
And that's.
If the solar panels are visible from the residential district in Lopatcon or Route 57.
So over here.
Right, additional, so it seems to me that the ordinance absolutely applies, and it's saying a solid screen. The ordinance is envisioning, you can't see them. So it's not a good argument to make, quite frankly, oh, you know, you shouldn't try to attain 100% screening when the ordinance, that's what it.
Well, it says solid, yeah, I understand. And that's.
So you guys gotta decide what you wanna do. You have one board member who says you're never gonna comply with the ordinance. Let me ask another question, because, Mike, show me the existing vegetation is along the property line.
Let's see if this survey, let's see if it shows up better.
I mean, this picture shows it better than anything.
And this is one of the pictures that was in the,
Yeah.
okay, so who provided this picture?
That's probably my office.
So this is. So. Mike, I'm showing you, this is page 1 of 3. It says Web Soil Survey, National Cooperative Soil Survey. In the lower left-hand corner, it's the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
USDA.
Yeah, and I'm looking for it, and it's dated November 1, 2022. Okay, so on page 1, it shows the site. Do you, does it show property lines in blue? that appears to
Yeah.
show?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so under the ordinance, could they, is there room to plant along the property line?
Without looking at it closer, it may not be. I mean, I don't know. These are obviously, as Paul indicated, they're deciduous trees, so they're leafed out right now, so.
How about you, does your engineer happen to know, Ms. Rubright, does your engineer know what the elevation of the site is versus the elevation of the residential zone on the opposite side of Route 57? In other words, are they level so that if plantings were done at, say, 8 to 10 feet, you wouldn't see it? Or are the properties on the other side of Route 57 higher so that they're gonna see it no matter what? Can someone answer that question from your team?
Mr. Mauer is looking at the drawing that you have, I will ask him if he can speak to that.
Yeah.
And if you can, great, if you can't. I mean,
My understanding that from Liberty is the site's above
Yeah,
Liberty.
I mean, you can see, there's a fairly steep incline from the property line up to the improvements that exist right now at the western side of the property.
Repeat what you said.
Okay, right now, you can just look at this topo here, and you got a tree row right off the property, that's obviously somebody else's property, but you got a pretty steep incline from the property line up to where the paving company operates, which is it. These are all for just stone storage and so forth.
What does that mean in terms of if you planted 8 to 10 foot high screening? Is it difference in elevation you would see over them, or is it difference in elevation you wouldn't see over them?
No, you actually, when you're looking.
All right, what, you know, I have to ask, what are we looking at on someone's phone? Is that part of the record or?
Yeah.
what are we
No, it's
doing?
not. It's not part of the record. That's why I asked you
Right,
to
I know.
sit
No,
back down.
Right, I just wanted to find out.
No, obviously, if there's an incline up and you can plant a screen at the top to look over the screen, you're certainly gonna be shielded from looking at something
That's what I
below
was
that,
asking.
yes. It's obviously works to your benefit in better screening the area,
So the residential area is at a lower elevation
yes. Well, the residential area directly to the west
to the west.
of the site.
Well, I'm gonna argue that a little bit. The residential area that borderlines Route 57 is on the same plane, if not slightly higher.
So the visual from the road is gonna,
The visual from the road.
because everything we have is aerial, which is lovely.
You're showing me 157.
Valid.
I think, speaking of, okay, here, 57. They're talking about.
Okay, so look at the topos and tell me what you think.
Well, just knowing the
Well, Paul's
site,
doing it from knowing it, because he's allowed to use his knowledge of the community. I'm asking you not as knowing it, as an engineer looking at those topos.
where's, I mean, there's not enough topo on there. The topo doesn't go over here where I need. It looks like the elevations are pretty similar, to be honest, as Paul's indicated. So there's no great difference in grade, higher or lower.
So if you could plant an 8 to 10 foot evergreen, it would work, but if you can't plant an 8 to 10 foot evergreen, then it won't work, because right now, those are not evergreens in that buffer area, those are all deciduous. Is that right, Mike?
I don't know for a fact. I mean, I trust Paul's
Well, just go-
institutional memory, but
Let me ask you this, if this is dated November 1, I don't know if that's when, listen, this is dated November 1, is that when this photograph was taken, or is that when this thing was printed?
I was mistaken. I think that's actually from our engineer. So
Yeah,
I have that.
so-
to say.
Okay. So the question is this a photograph of the existing tree buffer? That's an aerial photograph taken on November 1, or is it a picture and we don't know when it was taken? And it's just been printed by your office on November 1.
Yeah, November 1 is the day we pulled the web soil survey.
So this very well could be, I mean, it looks like it's very green out there, so it does look like it's in,
It's not November.
it's not.
Yeah, the leaves are down in October.
So what do you guys want to do? There's not. There's no legal advice involved here.
Well, okay, but how does it, you had a condition.
Right, but, okay, I had a condition. Which they agreed to, that you had one board member, maybe you want to do a straw poll, you have a board member, who, by the way, just for the record. The board member, just so you know, that everyone's supposed to bring their own, and he happens to be a landscaper. Okay, now, he's obviously not gonna get this job, that would be a conflict of interest. But as a landscaper, he has landscaping knowledge, so he's bringing his landscaping knowledge and his knowledge of the community. He says that if you grant the approval and you impose this condition, that if those guys go out there and they say supplemental planting, it's not gonna work and you'll see them. That's what the board member's saying, unless you wanna change your opinion.
Nope.
So, do you wanna, it seems like, I mean, I know you have to make the argument for the C variance, but it seems like that is the hang up, that's gonna be the hang up or the hiccup in the case, and you're gonna have to do a straw poll to see if people agree with him, or if there's enough people that would, vote otherwise, they're gonna ask you to come back and go out and actually investigate, so that you could put in evidence about it.
So I think the way that I would prefer to handle it is that, obviously, I don't know this gentleman, I don't know what you're telling me, what his experience
Right.
is. I'm a little reluctant to, rely on one person's
See,
understanding.
that's why I said we could straw poll.
What's happening. Well, let me finish. You crafted a condition, that talked about coming back after the installation is there.
That's his concern.
And looking at, so is the issue then, if you can see it, then you deny this application? I guess
If
that's.
you don't comply with the ordinance, unless you
Right.
seek a
Unless-
variance from this provision of the ordinance, but you're gonna have to make some argument on why you shouldn't have to provide a solid screen of plantings or a fence.
Right. So I'm saying we will attempt
Yeah,
to,
that,
we will.
attempting is not complying.
We will plant a solid
Yeah.
row. Now, the issue is, if it's not solid, then we can ask you for a variance. We can ask you for a variance now, and again,
Right.
it's substantial detriment. And I would submit that if we plant as best as is possible, physically possible, and it may not be completely solid, that this board should grant a variance to us because it's not a substantial detriment. It's not an absolute. It's not it has to be not just some detriment to some person who happens to be possibly particularly sensitive to landscaping because, oh, he's a landscaper. And, when I drive places, I see how the site lays out because I'm a land use lawyer. So what's a substantial detriment? I think this board is experienced in evaluating.
That's why I'm suggesting they
So-
straw poll it. That's why I'm suggesting they straw poll it. I
But
said,
I wanted to just go on the record of what I would like to be able to do and what I think is reasonable for this board to
well,
look
I
at.
will tell you this. If the board in its ultimate infinite wisdom believes that in Greenwich Township, which has a slogan, keep the green in Greenwich, just so you know. If the board in its infinite wisdom believes that it's a substantial detriment if members of the public can see it, I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm not taking a position one way or the other. I'm suggesting that they straw poll to see where they are on it, because I think you could benefit from a straw poll to see if you want to ask for an approval with the condition, or if you want to come back and try to actually get some hard facts in about that area
And this is the front from Route 57.
and Liberty.
Yeah, Liberty Road.
Yeah,
There's also a number of other things for them, not to delay action. I'm just making this as a suggestion. That they could come back addressing a number of the things. We've made a lot of recommendations and suggestions here. With the, you go to the water line easement, there's having the board see a revised set of plans isn't the worst thing in the world either.
but if the board could also decide that, but I'm just suggesting. My suggestion is that the board straw poll itself to see if board members are comfortable with the condition post-construction, understanding it's in built. So if it can't be screened, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm somewhat uncomfortable with that. When we have a condition already about creating sight lines,
But that's on
I know,
the residential neighbors, and that's on lot 18, not on this one.
right, and that's what I'm saying is, so personally, I'm uncomfortable with the build it and then we'll see if we can screen it.
Okay, there's one
Okay.
person. Why don't you go right around the horn?
Okay, I'm trusting.
Now, just so you understand, there are two people here that can deliberate, but they can't vote tonight on the application because you weren't here the whole time. And Gary Hill came in late. Did anyone else come in late other than those two? So those two people can talk, but they can't vote, but you should straw poll everybody. in my opinion.
I will add to mine to say that from my perspective, and you'd have to read that part of the ordinance where in terms of how much screening it was, the solid screen.
Right.
So to me, I understand solid screen, but I don't necessarily think that means 100%.
Okay, that's
Just opinion, okay?
Thank you for allowing my input, and I know it's just my input. I do like what Paul said. I like that he has a very consistent knowledge of the street vantage point. I value that. I think everybody in the community values that.
Yes.
Everyone's gonna
So
drive.
you want to see them do the actual study of it?
I would like to have appropriate planting done so that it does in fact get hidden as desired and in compliance with the ordinance.
It's saying,
I'm a
so you're
compliant
not
champion
comfortable
in my
with
realm.
post-construction condition because then basically the cat's out of the bag.
Stop, yeah,
Right.
Okay. That's for the next one.
I totally
Kathy?
agree, totally agree.
Agree.
Joe?
You gotta talk.
Agree. I don't think I agree. I think we're talking about on Route 57, putting, worrying about the sight line to a gas station. And, the only home that looks like it, the one that's west on Liberty, looks like it's the only one we should be worried about at this.
On that triangle.
Right, but that's right across,
George?
right across from her, right?
I'm finding myself unfortunately a touch ambivalent here. When it's about plantings, as opposed to if we're gonna tell them they gotta build a wall, well, we can make it 100% go away, they can't see anything on this, I get that. But for planting anything, seems to me 100% objective is probably unlikely. And I'm having a little trouble saying, no, forget the project or impose all these other things. In a situation where each of us has our own imagination working right now as to what the plantings might do. And I find myself a little reluctant
wanna
to
add
make a
something.
decision about imagining.
Yeah, the ordinance says a solid screen of plantings and or a fence.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could have a solid fence, especially if you have an existing vegetated area, but it's, seasonal. You could have a solid fence, but there's still people that have not said anything in this straw poll.
Jeremy?
I don't find it to be a substantial detriment.
And
I agree with Paul.
So it seems like,
oh, Mark.
Yeah, I disagree because I think the ordinance, the purpose is to protect our beautiful farmland and no disrespect to the property, that's not a beautiful piece of farmland. It's, you drive past, it's an asphalt plant. And
It's not exactly attractive.
so adding solar panels to what's there is, again, if it was a cornfield, I'd have a different opinion, but being the existing use as an asphalt plant, commercial operation, I'm comfortable with Kendra and Mike going post-control.
okay, so you have three people who are totally comfortable voting tonight. After the other people who are not comfortable heard what these three said, does anyone want to change their straw poll? No, so there's a majority who's not comfortable with that condition. So put it on the applicant. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for a vote tonight and make your argument for that 1C variance? Or do you want to come back and try to come back with something so you can actually go out there and do the sight lines on the other stuff, but do sight lines here and figure out what in fact it will look like, what you would have to put in? Would a solid fence do it? Because even though these three are fine with it tonight, you don't have enough votes.
Understood.
You want a 5-minute recess to talk it over? Give them a recess?
Yep, or research for.
So we
5 to 10 minutes.
Your natural resources.
Before they say anything, I just want to say, during the break, has anyone thought of anything else that they might want to add or bring to the table before we ask the applicant what they want to do?
The only other thing that I was thinking on the, I guess you're all calling it the north side where the arborvitae's are going down. And we were talking about 8 to 10. I think because of the topography of the homes above there, that 8 to 10 is probably too short. You're not gonna be able to buy arborvitae's much bigger than 10 to 12, and they're still gonna be short. But you all will figure that out when you do your line of sight on the plot.
But any other thoughts on the Liberty and the State Route 57 landscaping? No?
Is there anything else that can be added there, like tree plantings or anything?
Well, that's what they're gonna try to present to us to see if they can create the blockage, right?
We all agree.
Right, let's ask the applicant. It looks like the straw poll. Is where it is.
Right, so thank you for giving us the break. We did discuss it, and I mean, obviously, we want to get an approval. And we want to satisfy the board so that they can grant the approval. And what we'd like to be able to do is to provide the board with some kind of visuals so that it will, so that we can show the board that it's going to be a solid barrier. Now, I guess the question that I have is, I'm sorry, it's what's in the what are you looking for in can we submit a revised sheet?
I'm gonna
show this?
suggest that you ask that to Kendra and then Mike. And then see if board members agree with what they hear from them.
So I mean, obviously, I would suggest that you would have your professionals put together something that would prove to the board. I mean, that's, you know, your burden of proof, but I will say in the past, things like, as Mike had suggested, line of sight, visuals, you know, cross sections, being able to show line of sight, and then elevations with that cross section. Perspectives are always good, although sometimes there's some artistic licensing that's taking place with perspectives, but being able to get the line of sight from 57 into the site, putting in a kind of a 3D rendering of what you would be proposing for the plantings and or fence. I think those are all legitimate ways of being able to have the board at least start to visualize what they will see from these different vantage points.
And again, those vantage points are from Route 57 and then, forgive me,
Liberty Road.
Liberty Road.
And Mike, are you suggesting that if they're gonna do that, they should do the line of sights on the other sides that we were gonna
Well,
make?
sure, under the,
Well, it's not
yes,
OSHA,
yes.
so tell them what else are you suggesting
Well,
they come back with?
There's a number of ways to produce and provide information for the board's review, the professionals' review. And as Kendra just rattled a few of them off, I mean, you can obviously revise the plan to show some additional landscaping and so forth, the sightline profile, which will be, you know, fairly, you know, that will be very helpful. There's obviously a rendering that you could produce as well, and photographs. Now, the photographs we'd be talking about now would be taken in the month of January, so it'd be worst case, obviously, where you have, you know, there's no leaves on any trees right now, and if you're looking to come back next month and you're looking to keep this rolling along,
Yeah.
you don't want to get those pictures taken next week. So, I mean, but what the photos might show is the grade difference that we had just talked about on some of the sight lines we're looking at. 57, it's somewhat flatter. Liberty Road, the site sits higher. So seeing that, pictures, as the saying goes, picture speaks 1,000 words sometimes, so.
Okay, and Ms. Brewer, can you make your C variance argument now so we can at least complete the record and only have to come back on, you know, the visuals and the landscaping? The C variance argument for the front yard setback
Right,
deviation.
okay, that's, thank you.
Instead of 70 feet,
Yeah,
7.9 feet.
right, okay, great, I will do that. Okay, so as we know, an applicant seeking approval for both dimensional variances must show the proposed deviation satisfies the legal standards of what have become known as the positive and the negative criteria. The positive criteria may be satisfied by proving hardship in accordance with the criteria set forth or by demonstrating that the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced by a deviation from the zoning ordinance requirements. As to the negative criteria, no variance or other relief may be granted without a showing of that such variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and that it will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. The applicant submits that the requested variance may be granted under both the C1 hardship standard and the C2 benefits outweigh detriment standard, and that granting the variance will not substantially impair the public good in the zoning ordinance. The C1 hardship standard is satisfied as the site is and has been developed with the existing uses and structures for many years. The owner is seeking to have the solar panels constructed at the location on the property and is limited by the site constraints and the existing structures and activities and operations as to where the solar array may be constructed. The C2 standard is also, in our opinion, satisfied. Purpose N is to promote utilization of renewable energy resources. That, along with purpose A, which is to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare, in our opinion, show that the C2 standard is met. As to the negative criteria, the variance may be granted with a showing that such variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and is showing that it will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. As to the public good, the evaluation of this requires a finding that there is no substantial detriment or impact on the neighboring property or on the general public or surrounding neighborhood. Here, the solar installation is a passive use that will not affect the use of adjoining properties by noise, lighting, other externalities. Landscaping will be planted, as we've discussed, to buffer the visual impact to the neighboring properties. The property fronts on a county road and there will be no impact to that, although that's our opinion, although we will be providing additional landscaping and as we've been discussing, we will be providing on the side road as well. As to the no impairment of the Greenwich zoning ordinance, there is none, as the township has an ordinance that specifically permits solar installations such as this as an accessory use.
Okay, as to the question of the impairment of the ordinance, so what do you think the intent and purpose of the 70-foot buffer is? And I
Yeah,
assume that
so-
your argument's gonna be that provided the landscaping condition
Correct.
is imposed, then there'd be no substantial impairment. If you didn't have the landscaping, there would be.
It would be, and also the location of that easement, or that driveway in that easement, which it's taking on the facility of a road, whereas actually it's not, and
Yeah, but it
it's sort of
does.
an internal, it's really internal to the site. So I would say there's no substantial detriment to either the neighborhood or to the zone plan,
Provided,
provided that we have
Landscape.
the adequate landscape.
and the same thing, I assume, would be your answer as to compliance with ordinance section 16-4.19. Bear with me for a second. A3C, which is that, the solid screen of plantings and a fence. That provided that you comply with that, then there's no substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the solar ordinance, which has that requirement.
Right,
Correct?
correct, and if we need a variance from that, if when we come back next time, if we need a variance. for
Then you'll
that,
address it.
We'll have to address that. at that
Okay.
time. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
I have one I meant to ask earlier. Have all the neighboring residents been informed?
Yes,
Yes, I reviewed the content of the notice and it was satisfactory.
I reviewed all certifies, they were good.
Okay,
And
so,
they're here.
right, and no one's here. So this matter is gonna be carried to,
Are we due in February
Well, put it
or
this way.
March?
if
How
we
much time
said
do we need?
February, what's the date?
It's the 9th.
If we said February 9th, is that enough time for you guys, or do you need March?
We need to check with our engineering.
Okay, why don't we
department,
do
our
this?
landscaping
Okay, why don't we carry it to February 9
That's,
and March,
That would be March 9th also.
and March 9? We're gonna carry it February 9 and March 9 without need for further notice. That way, if you can't make February 9, and for some reason, if that meeting gets canceled,
right,
that we
Fair
still made an announcement that it's been carried to February 9 and March 9.
yeah, good
So-
point about whether if there's snow or something that we can
Correct. Now, the
Okay,
other
thank you.
thing is,
appreciate that.
the board has a rule on submittals coming in 21 days before, but maybe the board, and I'm not putting pressure on anyone, I'm just saying, no, there's a rule. But if the professionals believe that it's a limited submission, that you guys don't need your full, and the reason that it's a 21-day requirement is so that the board experts theoretically can get a report done in 11 days, so that it's in the board file 10 days before. So any members of the public and the board can have it 10 days before and not have to get it the night of the hearing. So having said that, either Mike or Kendra, do you want to suggest to the board that they waive the 21-day rule or keep the 21-day rule in place for the submissions that are now being discussed?
I'm fine with waiving
Um,
in this case.
yeah, I am too. I mean, as long as we're not getting it 3 days before the meeting, as long as we have a week to review the plan.
Why don't we say 10 days?
10
The
days.
MLUL 10 days.
Okay,
So it'd be the end of January. If it's February 9th, you have to get there January 30th, I guess.
and so we'll be working on that and, you know, I just can't represent.
Right.
yes or no
We get it.
And
tonight.
if you can't meet that, then
Then you're in
just
March.
contact us, let us know, and then we'll know you'll be back for March.
Last question. For Amy, time to decide. When were they deemed complete? Mike, when did you deem them complete? When were you
I
deemed
guess it would be
complete?
the date of this letter, December
Yeah,
27th.
it was very recent.
Yeah.
All right, December 27th, plenty of time. 120,
And we would obviously grant an extension if that's necessary.
okay. We don't need one at this point. Okay.
Right.
That's all she
All
wrote.
right, well, thank you for your attention and hopefully we will see you on the 9th of February
Otherwise,
with
the night
plans
tomorrow.
ahead of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, if I can add, I know you're coming back primarily because of this buffering and landscaping and so forth. But if there's other items in my report and Kendra's report that you can take care of, you know, you'd be doing everybody a favor. You'll be getting yourself that much close. So that's up to you guys. If you handle it that way, great. If you just do what the landscaping side of the equation, then so be it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you need this exhibit?
Yeah.
I do, yes.
Yeah. It's unclipped, yeah.
Escrow balances, you all received that in your emails. Don't know if you looked at it. Nothing was in the arrears, so I'll just say if the professional who also should have received it, know that you've got outstanding, and please take appropriate action to get more money in there. Amy had sent out to everyone the training requirements. And so, George, you got that?
I did, I might have to ask for it again, I was
I think
not
we
at my
signed.
best during that period.
Yeah, it was.
Just in case, I get kind of fluttered with stuff about you.
So, you know, Rocky, George, and, you know. Oh, have to do it, so,
Most people had taken it.
It's late, I know.
yeah,
Just trying to find an email, I know you sent it, I said.
if you don't have it, because you have some time, but obviously, the sooner you do it, the better you can contribute here.
And the class is virtual right now.
So it's a formal training.
It's on a
Yeah.
Saturday, it's a virtual.
Yeah, actually, you take advantage of doing it when it's still available
Yeah.
virtually.
Yeah, right, I like that, okay.
That and
You know
the
the
fact
length
we
of
have
time.
our kids will do it.
3 hours.
Like 3 hours?
More than that.
I think like 6.
Yeah, 4 to
5 or
6.
6 hours.
I'm a registered nurse, you know, like, I'm so awarded with every
I
test.
They're the ones that they do, so I think it's like 5 or 6.
Yeah, okay, so, okay, so I just want to say, please do that sooner rather than later, you know, just,
And if anybody wants to take it again,
affordable housing update, anything?
Rather not say publicly, but we're moving. We're moving forwards on the so-called Furman parcel, and Mike and I have meetings with the appropriate parties to try to get those two easement issues settled.
Okay, next board meeting, this says 10th, did you just say the 9th?
Yeah, we just did the 9th.
did I make an oopsie?
Well, did you make an oopsie on the announcement? or
Oh,
oopsie
yeah,
on the
I did
agenda?
not change these. It's an oopsie on the agenda.
Okay, so it's the
Thank you.
22nd, okay.
Those are last year.
So the next meeting is February 9th,
And then
okay,
March 9th.
and so with that, need the all important, motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second,
Be nice.
Chairman Joe.
here we go, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Abstained?
All right, good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. You didn't get any.